Welcome to another edition of the Fortitude Forum. I'm your host, Bill Burke, and if you've listened to this show in the past, you know, as well as I do, that we have some great guests from both the worlds of sports and the worlds of business. And today's guest is very unique in that he's got some amazing experience in both of those worlds because he's coached high performers in the world of sports, on the hardwood, and of course in business as well. He is the founder of the Greatness Factory. He's authored 14 books. He's helped high performers at the highest levels reach championships that they didn't imagine previously. He is Coach Michael Burt. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all the stuff you do. And I love the concept of fortitude. To me, a lot of successful people definitely have that in common, is they have a lot of fortitude, right?
Absolutely. It's an essential ingredient. And I want to talk specifically about, of course, the work that you're doing with your clients, but also you personally, because you've got an interesting story. And so if you would, I want you to take me back to those days as a basketball coach. What initially drew you to the sports world, to coaching specifically, and maybe even specifically to the game of basketball? Was it just a general love of sports, or did you see, even at an early age, the opportunity to have an impact on other people?
From an early age, I grew up on ball fields. I grew up in gyms. I was raised by a single mom. So a lot of times I was raised by coaches who took a vested interest in me. And from as early as 6 years old, I heard over and over from almost every coach I had, son, you're going to be a great coach. And so they saw something in me. Maybe it was a leadership skill. Maybe it was a pre-drive. Maybe it was instinctual. And so at 15 years old, I started coaching junior pro basketball. I was actually a better baseball player than I was basketball, but I got asked to coach a basketball team. I loved it. I fell in love with it the second I started coaching. And by 18, I was coaching at an elementary school, won a state championship at 18. By 19, I was at the second largest high school in Tennessee as an assistant. And then by 22, I was really lucky to be at the right place and right time and became the youngest head coach in the state of Tennessee at the second largest high school. Now, Bill, I started coaching girls for one reason, to expand my resume. I actually started with boys and coached girls only because when I got out of college, I thought it would be valuable if I could go either way. But I just fell in love with coaching girls when I started coaching them. They wanted to do what I asked. They tried really hard to be a team. And so I was lucky enough to take a school. Took me about 9 years to turn it into a national powerhouse. And then it went on to win 8 championships over a 10-year cycle.
Amazing. Isn't it interesting how the words that somebody speak to you at such a young age leave such a lasting impression, and you could end up stepping into that identity? I'm just amazed with the belief that other people can put into us. And I know you know that now, and the work that you do with your clients. I love that story. I love that you took that, you paid attention to it, and of course had great success with it. That's just one part of what you just said, but you started coaching at 18 as a teenager and winning championships around that age as well. What did you know about leadership at that point, given how young you really were? But then also, have you looked back and really analyzed how that view of leadership has evolved over the years?
I was lucky enough to study under Don Meyer, the great Don Meyer, who was at David Lipscomb University. Just by proximity, I lived about an hour from David Lipscomb. Meyer was this great coach at this Division III or NAIA school. I went to his camps when I was a kid, and everything was about leadership, life after basketball, success principles. And by going to his clinics, I go, man, when I become a head coach, I'm going to teach every player the 7 habits of highly effective people. I'm going to teach principles of good to great. I'm going to teach the power of intention. So I was really a self-help junkie. I was going over to the business world. I was studying great business leaders, and I was bringing that back over to the athletic world, which in those days, this was the late 90s, was very unusual, right? Coaches may bring some motivation, but they really didn't get into how organizations run. At 25, I went back to get my doctorate in business and management. So I started studying Malcolm Baldrige winners. And I was trying to bring all these great business concepts over to the athletic world. And it was really working. Is the more I poured into the players, the more we won, the more people wanted to know what I was doing. And I really just said, man, I don't have time to explain it. And that's really what prompted me to start writing books at 25 years old. And that was actually 23 books ago. It's like that's what started me into corporate America, is combining business and sport together. And that got me into my next career, which I started at 31.
Yeah, it's not just about the X's and O's. That seems obvious today when you look at the sports world and everything that's become crucial to developing athletes and building championship teams, but not so obvious back in those days. You mentioned your early 30s and you decided to make that transition from coaching basketball to getting into the corporate world. And the show is all about fortitude and mental toughness. So I'm just curious, what was that transition like for you? And what types of specific mental toughness did you have to call upon or develop or learn in order to make that very uncertain transition?
I think fortitude to me is the gumption to move forward with something. A lot of times I call psychological flexibility is that really at the peak of my career, Bill, I was going to win championships for the next 10 to 15 years. That's where I was. I was at 31 years old. I was at the peak of my coaching career. I really was going to dominate for the next decade. And it took me 10 years to build that. And I just completely walked away from it. Like I remember the day I retired from coaching, I had won a championship the year before. I had a very young team the next year. I go, man, I'm going to come back one more year and coach this team and try to win 25 games with this team. And I'm going to go do something bigger. And I went and spoke that morning. I went on my way back. I go, man, this is the day I'm going to retire. And I walked in and I met with the team and they cried. And I had really no customers. I had none of the sales systems I have today, follow up. I had none of, I didn't have greatness factories. It really was just me thinking, I have a skill. I think this skill is going to be very valuable out in the world. I don't know where all I'm going to take it. And early on, banks begin to sign me, typically $2 billion banks, privately held, mortgage companies, insurance companies. And for the first 4 years, it was just come in, take our people, and get a big result. And it was like, come in and drive this initiative, come in and coach these 500 people, come in and develop all my talent. And those people were paying me anywhere between 125,000 and 350,000. And as a 31-year-old who was a high school basketball coach, I'm like, man, I've hit the lottery, man. I'm over here making $1 million a year. I'm 30 something years old. I think I have made it. Okay. And then I got interested in other things as I've gotten older, private equity, buying real estate, building greatness factories. But at the core of it, I am a coach. And that is my primary skill is a skill of activation. So the fortitude was to walk in and go, I don't have insurance. I don't have a customer acquisition strategy. All I know is I got a skill and some confidence. And I'm going to take it to the world like a free agent. And I'm going to see who will pay for it. And that's really how I started the speaking and coaching business.
Just having a skill and some confidence and then making that leap, that certainly requires a ton of fortitude and courage
Yep.
and self-confidence. I love that. I love that you took that leap. And unfortunately, so many of our clients that we work with, they're not there yet. They're not ready to take that leap and to have that courage, even though you and I both know that it's lodged somewhere inside of them. We just got to bring it out. You mentioned the books that you've written, and your latest is $1 Million Days. Go pick it up if it's available, or I think it might be still available for pre-order. If not, it's out there somewhere. And I'll give you the opportunity, of course, at the end to let everybody know where they can connect with that. But is there one book in all the ones that you've written that you said to yourself, that's the book that I just have to write? Maybe it's the one that represented or most represented at the time your overall philosophy.
I think if I went back and look at my seminal work, my fourth book was called This Ain't No Practice Life. And I wrote that when I was a coach. And I think it's when you look at an author's work and you kind of go back to the beginning of their core philosophy. I was a big disciple of Covey. Covey had 7 habits. That book had 7 big decisions. And then fast forward to when I wrote Everybody Needs a Coach in Life. I think that talks about the whole person theory, how I activate people. And then fast forward to Flip the Switch, which became a Wall Street Journal bestseller for me. If you look at these books, there's themes. And I'm in a season right now in my life of helping people get a seat at a bigger table, activating the person, activating a business, activating their wealth, helping people find their primary skills, choose which problem that they want to solve in the world, and then take that through the right vehicle. And that's one part of the business. The other part of the business is actually activating brands. This is a big part of my life now, activating everything from coffee companies to insurance companies where the infrastructure is in place, the business could be successful. And I'm using that skill of activation to really activate that brand and bring some life, to breathe some life into something that's just sitting there ready to be activated.
Yeah. And this is just my interpretation, my observation, but your coaching style seems to combine two styles really. The style of there's a matter of fact quality to it, but there's also this positivity to it as well. And that's really a rare combination, I think, in coaches. And I'm a big sports fan. I've got a sports background, actually playing the sport. And I'm fascinated by guys that can coach. And even with the same personnel, they can come in and completely take the same guys from one level to a completely different level. How do you strike that balance as a coach without wearing people out or burning people out? I've had coaches that they got all the knowledge and they've got all this the other stuff, but man, it wears on people, and so you don't get the most results that you could out of people. So how do you strike that balance from a philosophical perspective?
For the first 4 years of my head coaching career, I was intense and negative. So the more intense I became, the more negative I became. And during that period of my life, I didn't win any championships. The players would play hard for most of the season, and then they would emotionally check out. And at 25 years old, I decided to change. And I happened to be around a coach. I coached the Nike team in the summer. The Nike team was the top 12 female athletes in the state of Tennessee. The coaches were hand selected. So I was the head coach of that team 4 or 5 times, and I had an all-star team of assistant coaches. Like these were like the best of the best coaches really in the country. And I noticed one of the assistants I had was very intense and he was very positive. And I noticed that he could really get on the players, but they loved playing for him. And as a young coach, I go, that's what I need. Instead of being intense and negative, I need to be intense and positive. I need to operate with positive expectancy, hard optimism. I need to focus on the language of winning versus the language of losing. And I made this simple shift in my life. And once I made this shift, the players responded differently. They bought in at a deeper level, they had a deeper discipline. And that's really what started my career there from 25 to 31 of winning a lot. And then I go, man, I'm going to take that with me to business. I'm going to be intense. I'm going to be positive. 24% of the players in the NFL, if they had to choose which coach they play for, they would play for Pete Carroll. When you look at Pete Carroll, he's intense and positive. He looks like a player's coach, but if you ask the players, is he easy to play for? They go, that dude has some of the highest standards of anybody you would ever work with, but he looks positive, right? So I'm like, that's a coach I would like to play for. And that's really what I embodied in my career, and even to this point today.
Yeah, he's a great one for sure. Man, I just admire his energy. He's got the full head of hair. He's chomping on the bubble gum. He's fun to watch.
For sure.
You alluded to it a minute ago, but talk to me a little bit about what you call prey drive. What does that mean exactly, and where did that phrase come from?
Prey drive is really prevalent in an animal, specifically a dog. A dog has a prey drive. And when you write books like I do, you're constantly looking for vujade. You're looking for a fresh twist on an old concept. And there's about 20 motivational theories out there. I've studied all of those theories. I've deconstructed those theories. They all say basically the same thing. We move toward things we want. And when I saw the two words prey drive, I go, now, what is this? I was fascinated by it. And it is basically instinctual ability of an animal to stalk, capture, and kill prey. And I go, I think humans have this prey drive. It's not the ability to stalk, capture, and kill. It is the ability to see something in the mind, that would be the imagination, or with the eyes optically, and to pursue this, right? But that prey drive has to be activated. So I trademarked those two words, prey drive, in humans. I gave it a new definition. I then created my own motivational theory, which is there's three phases to this drive. It must be activated, there must be a persistence to it, there must be an intensity to it. Then there's these activators. And then I wrote the book Flip the Switch, which are around that philosophy of prey drive. Now, I signed a deal with McGraw-Hill on that book, and they would not let me put prey drive on the cover. They thought it was too masculine. They thought it was too predatory. They thought people wouldn't understand it. And so we compromised, and they said, what happens when this drive is activated? And I said, it's almost like flipping a switch in a person's life. So we called the book Flip the Switch. I went back and read it on Audible, and I called it Prey Drive. And a lot of people associate me with those two words. Sharon Lecter, who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad for Kiyosaki and a number of books, called me one day and she said, That is, you are prey drive. And I thought after 18 books, that was my 18th book, I thought, okay, I'm starting to find my rhythm. I'm starting to find my voice. I'm starting to carve out a specialty over here. And that's really how I want to be known, not just as a coach, but like that dude is a specialist at activating things, people, ecosystems, cultures, brands. And that was a turning point for me at around 41, 42 years old.
Yeah, I love it. It makes a lot of sense. And I know that it gets results for your clients. Speaking of those clients, like I'm sure all of them do, everybody wants success, right? But a lot of people have trouble sustaining that motivation. So, how do you coach people who have that prey drive, but for whatever reason, it's gone dormant, it's fallen asleep? How do you wake that up from a tactical perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we really, if you said, if you came to me, Bill, and said, what's the number one thing you can do to reignite a person's prey drive? I really believe from the five activators, okay, fear is an activator, primarily fear of loss can activate the drive, competition can activate the drive. Environments can activate the drive. Like when you come to the Greatness Factory, you're going to be activated, right? It's the whole place is built around like a locker room. You grew up in a locker room, and like locker rooms can activate that drive. Embarrassment can activate the drive. But the one, if you said if there's only one you could choose that can reactivate something, I actually think it's exposure. And exposure is where I see something. I'm around something. I grew up as a kid in a small town. I never went to New York City or Chicago or Miami, Florida. We just didn't have a lot of money. We went to the same place every year on vacation. And that's no knock to my mom because it hurts her feelings if she thinks we were poor. We weren't poor, but we were probably right down the street from it. And when I started going to big cities, when I started speaking, when I started traveling, and I started getting around the best people in the world, and I started getting exposed to something, it activated something inside of me like, boom, there's a bigger future. Like I see it. I want to go toward it. A lot of people, it's dormant because their frequency is low. They're in low frequency environments. They hang around low frequency people. Frequency is the number of times something happens. Frequency is also a signal that you emit to the world. Frequency is like, hey, I'm a positive expectancy person. But a lot of my learning has been around just being around great people. And man, I like how that dude communicates. And I like how the energy that person shows up with. And I like how that one handles adversity. And so I think exposure can activate the prey drive faster than anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. It makes a lot of sense. Certainly, a lot of things go into it, but I like the perspective. Let's talk for a second about these pressure packed situations because high performers are very often finding themselves in those types of situations. All the people that you've been exposed to and helped over the years, both in basketball and, of course, in business, there's something that you see as the root cause that maybe all those people are overlooking when it comes to making those elite decisions when the pressure is highest.
I think you're calling on my sports background. And when I look at the habits of the top 1%, okay, there are certain attributes of the top 1% of performers: remarkable boldness, intrinsic motivation, grit and resilience, ability to lock in and see something through to its conclusion, great connection skills. Where do you learn all those things at? In my opinion, it's through repetition. It's through muscle memory. It's through you've done it so many times, that that's the only way you know how to do it, right? So when you get in a pressure situation, you don't think, you perform. And I remember when I was a coach, I used to make the players shoot 500 shots after practice, and they hated it, right? After you go through pre workouts, individual workouts, go to the weight room, individual meetings, pre-practice meetings, then we would practice. Then I would make them shoot 500 shots after practice, which takes hours, by the way. And I remember walking over to one of my players who had a bad attitude. She was a sophomore named Shalina Burgess. And I said, "What's your problem, Burgess?" And she said, "I don't know why you make me take 500 shots in practice when you won't let me shoot in the game." And I thought, man, I went home that night and my first response was, "I'll make you take 1,000 shots a day." But I went home that night, Bill, and I go, she's right. I really was controlling all of the offense through two players, my two top players. The other players were decoys or screeners or rebounders. And I thought, you know what? She's 100%. I came back the next day and I apologized to the team. I said, ladies, I'm 100% wrong. Charlene is 100% right. From this point forward, if you're open, anybody's open, take it. Take the shot. Every category went up. Every single category went up when I released the players. Then other teams couldn't just stop my best two players because that's what they were doing. They were double teaming my best two players. They would leave people open. They knew they wouldn't shoot. From that point forward, they had to stop all 5 players. They could not. So if this player scored 8 points a night, this player scored 7, this player scored 10, that was just enough for us to win those games, those big pressure games that didn't happen until that happened. So when I think about releasing and activating a drive, sometimes there's so many constraints, or what psychologists call a crux. There's a crux in something that if we just solve this one problem, it really could change everything for me. And I think that's what big time players do. She was remarkably bold. 9 out of 10 players would not have said that to me. 9 out of 10 players would just kept shooting the shots, having right, like, what is he doing? But she had the guts to say to me, to my face, I don't know why you're making me take the shots when you won't let me shoot in the game. And I thought, I respect that. That's boldness. That's not disrespect. It's actually remarkable boldness. And that's what top performers have.
Absolutely. You're talking about her boldness, but from your perspective, man, as a leader, to have the awareness, to have the humility and the courage and the boldness yourself to come in and call the team together and say, hey, I was wrong. That's an amazing thing. And then, of course, all of your actions, no doubt, had to have a huge effect on the belief that she had in herself from that point forward, and all the players to take those open shots. A lot going on in that little story, but very impactful all the way around. Where does identity play a role in peak performance? How does someone rewrite an identity that maybe doesn't fit with their ambition?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Great people develop a concept of themselves typically early in life. And I can tell now when I coach adults if they have never developed that concept, if they've never developed that identity. So their self talk may be really bad. And it's just like they have to recreate their identity. Now, the good news is, as they can create a new identity. They've been given independent will, they've been given imagination, they've been given all of these things. But until they get around people that challenge, like I'm challenging all of my students right now and about their frequency, right? I'm in a series on your frequency is your future because I see how people show up. And it's this one that shows up and you could tell he doesn't have confidence. And this one shows up and she really don't believe in what she's doing. And this one shows up meek. And I'm like really challenging my students to change the identity of themselves. And I'm giving them very specific things they can do to change their identity. And a lot of it has to do with subtraction of concepts or people. It has to be with awareness. Like, how am I showing up? Am I showing up at low frequency or high frequency? Am I showing up prepared or not prepared? Do I come with batteries included? Do I have negative expectancy or positive expectancy? And you would be shocked how people are responding to this. It's, man, nobody's ever said this to them. But as soon as I've said it to them, Bill, some of my students like, man, I got a low frequency. I hang around low frequency people. I dress like a low frequency person. I show up like a low frequency person. It's like they may be 40 something years old or 50 and they're just now having an awareness. Like, I need to subtract things and change my identity. And it's a really beautiful thing to see a person come in. I've got a young lady on my team that was a Navy intel analyst who went through a lot of trauma. When I first started coaching her, she couldn't even get her head up on a Zoom. And I would call on her and say, I see something in you. You got all this intelligence. The military spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on your training. Like, I think you're really smart. You got multiple degrees in psychology. Like, I see something in you. We need to change your frequency. We need to change your confidence. We need to rebuild your identity. And man, I have created a friggin' monster, Bill. Now she's like my chief integrator. She's involved in all the companies I'm associated with. Anytime I sign a contract with a company, it includes her. It's like she does all my risk analysis on everything. It's like I'm using all of her past. And it's like I have just slowly watched her rebuild this confidence to a whole new person. And that's happened in less than 2 years. You see it as a coach. I see it. It's, hey, man, this is possible for you if you can change it, if you can recognize it first.
So much there. I think one of the biggest tragedies in this world of high performance is so many people do not understand that they are actually in control. They have the power to create anything that they want. And that's really the most exciting part of this whole thing. But people are walking around in the dark out there thinking that the circumstances are the problem, the weather, the job, the other people. It's really my mission. And I know it's part of yours as well, is to wake people up to the fact that they can really control their future and create it with some pretty easy tactics and tools and tips and tricks by just tweaking a couple of things, a lot of which you just mentioned. So I'm glad you brought that up. You mentioned earlier at the top of this idea of what you're doing now or what you're focused on now, which is really understanding or helping people understand this concept of the big table. And so talk to me and talk to our listeners here for a second in detail as much as you can about how this high performance and getting to where you want to be really is so affected by the people that you are around, the tables that you're sitting at, the environments that you operate in. What can you say to the listeners about that specifically?
The big table idea came to me when I was listening to a podcast with Lewis Howes and Dr. Price Pritchett, who's become a mentor to me. And Lewis Howes asked Price, why did he get into mergers and acquisitions? He was a clinical psychologist. He did his dissertation on rapid self-development. He worked in a psychiatric ward for a year. He did executive assessments, and then he went over here into mergers and acquisitions. And when Lewis asked him, why did you get into this field? He said, mergers and acquisitions is the biggest game in business. It's the big table. And when he said that, there was something about that triggered me. It's okay. What is the big table? How do I define the big table? It's highly enjoyable. It's highly profitable. It's highly meaningful. It's the biggest game in business. There's a return on my energy. There's a return on my investments. There's a return on my objectives. And so I started playing around with this concept is could I codify how a person could get a seat at a much bigger table? And it started with a trigger moment, right? It's like you may be out there in Michigan going, okay, I'm playing a good game, but there's a bigger game for me to play. And something triggers that in you. Could be frustration, could be pain, could be incremental growth, could be you're watching other people outperform you when you know you're just as skilled as them. But there's a trigger moment followed by some frustration. And my frustration was feeling like a level 10 person maybe stuck in some level 4 vehicles, right? Kind of like I did as a high school basketball coach. No matter how much I won, how many games, they could only pay me so much money. And I felt like I was supposed to be at a bigger table. And I had the guts to go find that table. And then I got into the coaching business. And it's been a great business for me. It's helped me build all of my wealth. It's helped me travel the world. But then one day I go, this is good, but I think I could raise capital. I think I could build greatness factories. I think I could take equity in companies. I think I could activate brands and ecosystems. And I kept having this desire to keep up in the ante to a bigger game. And so I began to codify this in trigger moment, frustration point, formula. And the formula was the skill you have, the problem you solve, and the vehicle. And this is so important. The vehicle is how you distribute your talents to the world. It's okay. I've got a coaching business. I got a private equity fund. I got Blue Marlin Capital that invests in data centers. And then it's like I have some equity in companies that could really go big. We're talking, these are companies that could be $500 million companies. My piece of equity could be 25 million, 30 million. And it's okay. Nobody could pay me 30 million to be their coach, but this is a way for me to go make 30 million. Okay. I'm using the same skill to solve a bigger problem through the vehicle. Now, we call that baking soda in the book, $1 Million Days. It's like baking soda could be used in a lot of different ways. So it's like, this is the skill, this is the problem. So then you kind of work through this formula till you find the game you're supposed to be playing. And then you start thinking in terms of quantum leaps versus incremental growth. And this is where Price Pritchett deeply impacted me. A quantum leap is some crazy goal. So if you follow me on social, you see me talk about having 50 greatness factories. The truth is I only have one greatness factory, okay? It's here in Nashville. But in my mind, I have 50. Now, the reason I do that is because I start going, okay, who could help me do this? So I go, I could license these things. And people started calling me saying, I want to license them. And then I said, I could raise capital and start building these things. And I'm going to build 20 and maybe sell the portfolio. Then I'm going to try to get to 50 and sell it at a bigger level. And so I started going there in my mind and I started going, this is the big table. I don't have one of these. I have 50 of these. And the more I talk about it, the more I speak it, the more I write it in my notes, the more I teach my students. This is how you go have a quantum leap. You don't go 1 to 2. You go 1 to 50, right? You don't show incremental growth. I'm coaching a real estate guy yesterday, very talented. He did 107 deals this year. He said, next year I'm going to do 125. And I go, yeah, man, but that's only 18 more deals. You're going to come back and work this hard to do 18? let's rework the goals to 250 or 500. And I say, we may not get there, but what if you do 175? You're going to feel a lot better about yourself. And now we're into quantum leap thinking. Now we're not into incremental thinking. And we're into like, how do I strategically partner? Who can help me do this? And it really changes the way you think. And that's really what I teach a lot of my students. So ultimately, that's the big table's the biggest game that you could play with your skill set that would reward you at the highest level.
Was there a point or a moment or a scenario earlier in your career, even maybe before you were consciously developing this big table concept or idea, where you said, okay, holy cow, this just happened. I just sat down at a much bigger table. Was there that aha moment for you, maybe personally or professionally? Was it a stage that you stepped on? Was it a client or a company that you helped coach? Was there a moment that sticks out or jumps out in your mind?
I think when I raised $30 million last year, or I was part of raising $30 million, you got to think I'm 49. I had only raised about 900,000 to start to build this place. And then I got on the board of a publicly traded company and I started a couple funds and I went out literally in a 6-month cycle and raised 30 million bucks. And I go, man, I could do this. Like all of that reputational capital, showing up for all of those years, sending out morning messages, being on social media, being trustworthy, like having high integrity, doing what I said I was going to do. Like I can do this, man. And so when after I raised 30 million bucks for 3 different things, I'm like, okay, I think 100 million is not out of the equation, right? Like you look at it and think, well, this is a big number, but really when you start doing it and you emit that frequency out to the world, it's okay, I'm ready to go do it. So I think that's one signal. I think building this place, it doesn't matter who comes to this place. We've had people that are billionaires come here. We've had when they walk through the greatest factory to go, this is cool. And to have somebody who's done something like that go, now this is cool. This is a cool space. It's okay. We're onto something. Like we've done something here. It's not just a little office building. I think there's a couple moments we have, Bill. I'll go sit in the theater here by myself at the end of a day when nobody's here but me and just sit in the theater and go, man, we built this thing, man. And it's cool. It's a moment. Then I'm like, what's next? What's
Well,
next?
speaking of that, you mentioned so many of your dreams that you have for the future, but what are you excited about beyond what you mentioned? What are you excited about building in the future? What's next for you in your career or even in your personal life? Where are you going? And really, are there any limits? I know from your perspective, you probably don't look at yourself as having a limitation, and that translates into the people that you coach and help. But where are you going? Where is your potential? Where is the ceiling for you if one exists?
I think the potential is raising capital, building greatness factories. I'm very excited about that because to me, prey drive is really the pursuing something. It's not capturing something. It's not. It's the pursuit of winning a championship. Once you win a championship, it's like, all right, that was great, man. It's the fight of going and getting it that where the prey drive is activated most. So I think I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to see where I can take my skill. I think the more clarity I have on what skill I actually have and how I can solve really big problems and bring that skill set of activation to various things. To me, that's bringing a new confidence, a new boldness to me, and I truly think these quantum leaps are what's next for me. And I think hopefully I can inspire other people along the way, man. You can do it. If this kid could do it, you could do it.
That's right. We will wrap up right there. This has been awesome, Coach. Please tell the listeners how they can get your books, how they can connect with you, how they can get coached by you. Where can they connect with Coach Michael Burt?
If you go to coachburt.com, it shows you click on coaching and it gives you options. And it may say do a private dinner with Coach Burt. It may say fly on the jet with Coach Burt. It may say get coach one to one by Coach Burt, right? It tells you very specific ways to get in his group coaching programs. Because if you're out there and you're watching this and you're like, man, I want to see it at a bigger table. Okay. I'm tired of being an amateur. I'm ready to go pro. Go there, start there. I try my best to call every person that buys books from my website. I really do. If you buy a book from my website, don't be surprised if I personally call you. It's not AI, it's me. It's like I say, thanks for buying that book. Tell me what you're trying to do. Let me see how I can help you move from A to B. And so I think that's a good place to start. Obviously, we have a lot of stuff out there on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Just search Coach Michael Burt and you should be able to find a lot of that stuff.
Awesome, Coach. I can't wait to see what you continue to do in the future. I can't wait to hopefully someday visit that Greatness Factory in Nashville and also see the future ones that have yet to be built. Thanks so much for joining the Fortitude Forum. This has been awesome. I know the listeners are going to find so much value with it. And as always, let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. But thanks so much, Coach.
Thank you, Bill. And Michigan's on the list, man. I like Michigan in the summer. I could see us coming to Michigan at some point.
You and me both. You and me both. You can have winter. Thanks, Coach.
All right, brother. Thank you, man.